Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our new mobility talk at the IAA 2017. Today we are talking about smart cities, and I've invited interesting guests and experts who can tell me about this topic. First of all, it's Dr. Barbara Flügge of SAP. Welcome.
Thank you.
And
Thanks.
Welcome as well, Dr. Rainer Scholz of EY.
Thank you.
To start with, we are talking about smart cities. Our new mobility will have impact on the infrastructure of cities as well. Here at the IAA, most of the exhibitors are exposing their cars and the vehicles of the future, but we have to think and talk about the impact on our cities as well. So, what does smart city mean for you as an expert?
Well, for me, when you look into the definition of a smart city from United Nations and OECD, there are 6 segments, right? It's economy, governance, people, of course, environment, resources, and very importantly, also mobility and transport. So mobility is de facto a key element to transform a city into a smart city. And only if you're able to really make use of digital elements and solutions, and serve the citizens themselves and the consumers for their benefit, then is, in my perspective, the way open to actually transform it into a smart city. Yeah.
In the history of the car, the last more than 120 years, the car was an autonomous element in the city as well. So it was driving on its own. The driver had the responsibility to drive the car as needed. In the future, when we are talking about really autonomous driving cars and e-mobility and connected cars, there need to be other factors influencing on the car. So what prerequisites do we have to create to enable a city to be a mobility city?
This is it's really an issue of digitalization, and what has to be done is that the city has to be fitted with different technical equipment, and of course with platforms who will be able to connect data, to filter data, and as well to make some analytics. And more or less, this is the technical point of view of this, what might happen. So we from Ernst & Young, we have as well an economic view. And what we have done is we have discussed and evaluated different use cases of smart city in a city, because what we see is that someone has to invest in order to build a smart city, and as far it is, at least in the past, the city has to invest, and they will only invest if there is a positive business case.
Mm-hmm. So there are benefits expected within this new mobility world, but the question is, who will enable the cities to invest such amounts of money? Because we're not talking about loading or charging infrastructure only. There is a car-to-X discussion. That means intelligence between the car, the people, the buildings, the city lights, and so on and so on. So who will enable the cities to invest such huge amounts of money?
I think that's a very good question, because when you look into cities themselves, they're very unique. So each city has its own brand identity. So we see here on the table from SAP a specific layout, right? But if you look into, let's say, grown-up cities, if cities evolved, let's say, in Europe, in Germany, Switzerland, they have their specific identity and brand. To a certain extent, they don't know it yet. So that's something what we will reveal. And the other question is what mobility really will influence. If you have a production manufacturing oriented city, you have a lot of cargo traffic as well. So the ones that really steer are the stakeholders, let's say the community as well. You find cities where the mayor is very innovative, is a forward thinker, and really drives innovation. In other cities, for example, we work with, let's say, it's a manufacturing company or it's a research institute. So it really depends on the context. I call it, let's say, the city profile, where you find the ones that drive it. And it's an effort to bring those together.
And I think there is a big difference if we're developing the layout of a city from scratch. That means on a white sheet of paper, or if we need to adapt an existing city with hundreds of years of history. So how can we tackle this problem?
Now, what we did, we investigated more than 100 cities after we're using different criteria in order to understand how they are function and how we could cluster them. And I mean, you have all these the characteristics, like if they are technical affine, so do they have infrastructure, do they have money, of course, and as well, one of the most important things is there an election in the next 2 or 3 years? Because this will really have a big impact if the city is able to do something on the smart city area.
Uh-huh. So you are looking into today's situation in the different cities. Which of the existing city of today, the year 2017, is smart already to your point of view?
Well, I think, of course, we could mention a number of cities, like the government state of Singapore, for example, the city of Vienna. But we also work really with mid-size and very small cities. For example, if you look into Constance, where they really take the challenge and transform it into an opportunity. So there are many out there that are actually even unknown. Because
why are they called smart?
Well,
why do you call them smart?
They're smart because when you look into the definition, they took one of these pillars, like governance, economy, mobility, and so forth, and make use of digital transformation solutions. So of these capabilities, like you described from E&Y, and really made that happen and deployed these. So where they also have, and that's another point of smartness, where they engage the citizens and the businesses and the academia locally. So smartness not only is related to digitization and making use deployment of solutions, it's also about community engagement and really determine the future of the city jointly. And that's one of the key aspects, and also, I would say it's one of the key performance indicators. And this is how I look into that, into this, conglomerate of various different interests, and be able to bring that together and make one strategy, one vision paper out of that. Yeah.
I think there is no doubt in among experts that the degree of smartness of our cities will have an impact on the vehicles as well. That means we only can see highly developed interconnected cars in a surrounding, in an area where it is permitted. So this is a topic we need to discuss with more stakeholders than before. So the automotive industry certainly needs to open itself to other stakeholders. Do you think they are prepared for that already?
I mean, what we believe is that, let me say in 10 years, the user will buy miles to travel and not unutilized assets, so that we did in the past. And I think this is the driver for many things. And if you look on the city itself, so we believe if they will, coming from this perspective of miles to travel, they will start to reduce the sum of miles which are traveled, let me see, in 1 year, in order to tackle congestion, in order to tackle emissions. So, and this will, from my point of view, one of the big drivers will have huge impact of the automotive industry.
And who will do the business? Will the car manufacturers be the ones who will earn money with that mobility concept, or will there be maybe new partners to do the job?
Before I answer the question, let me add to your point. I think the question is also, who is the automotive industry? I think we cannot really go into that and look just from the typical industry definition, and the boundaries are really blurring. So you find telecommunication companies, German Post, for example, let's say with the acquisition of Street Scooter, now turning into an automotive company. It's more about who's serving, let's say, the mobility need and the right to mobility for everyone. And who will benefit? I hope, and I think that's also what we are working on, is the ones that actually provide the data, so the consumer behavior. When I decide to go and exit here, purchase a service directly in the car, that I as a driver or co-driver or passenger also have a benefit with the data I'm sharing, and hopefully not always free of charge. But of course, a city also is, is beneficial or a beneficiary of that if they are able to manage mobility management holistically, regardless if it's public, private or shared mobility.
But if we look at today's cities, for example, here in Germany, now we are in Frankfurt at the IAA, if you look at the way traffic is organized in that city, one can hardly believe that we are in the age of a smart city. So how long will it take to convert cities like Frankfurt, for example, into a smart city as far as mobility is concerned?
Well, I think we have to understand the procedures that will lead to a change. And honestly, at the moment, the cities need money in order to invest. And so what they are doing is looking to use cases where they not only invest but as well earn. And what we did is we calculated different use cases. And one of this was traffic management. And honestly to speak, this is not a positive business case for a city. So if you see this, you can imagine that it will take a very long time in order this kind of issue will be resolved by the city. So there are other business cases like parking, smart parking. So we calculated that after 3 to 4 years, the city, if it invests into sensors, will be positive, have a positive business case. And this could be a driver in order to start with smart city applications like smart parking, where you have the platform and then can utilize the data.
Interesting topic, and I think we will not be able to discuss it completely in our 15-minute talk, but thank you very much for those first impressions, and I think it's worthwhile passing by here at the common booth of SAP, EY and Harman to talk about those topics as well. Dr. Flügge, Dr. Scholz, thank you for being with me, and thank you for watching. Bye.